Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, the podcast for conscious parents, caregivers, and educators who believe tantrums aren't terrible. They are powerful opportunities for connection, growth, and learning during the first 5 years. You'll explore how to use intentional language to raise calm, confident, and deeply connected kids, because the way we talk to kids becomes how they see themselves and engage with the world. Hi, I'm your host, Cara Tyrrell, classroom teacher turned parent educator and teacher trainer. Are you ready to nurture your children's mind, body, and spirit? Welcome, Toddler Tribe. Let's transform the toddler years together. Hey there, Toddler Tribe. Just a quick note from me before we start this episode. I tagged into the wrong microphone, and while I was recording, I have an infant in my arms. You're going to hear background noise with her cute little snores and her sweet little squeaks. And I just wanted you to be aware of that before you dive into the episode. Thank you for your flexibility, because re-recording just didn't make sense to me. And I hope you enjoy her sounds just as much as you do the content of the episode. Welcome back, Toddler Tribe, to another episode of the show. Today, we are diving into the second half of the book. That's right, our little linguist series is moving quickly into the intentional language section of the book. I am so excited to share this with you. So, let's dive right in, shall we? I'm going to read just a smidge from the beginning of chapter 10. And then share a story with you about something I saw in the real world that just so perfectly, I don't have even I don't know the right words, right? It's so perfectly demonstrated my collaborative discipline method in action. And to be on the sidelines and observe and just being like the inner cheerleader for these women, it was extraordinary. All right, let's dive in. Chapter 10, using intentional language to connect, compromise, and collaborate with infants and toddlers. Connection is the gateway to hearing, understanding, and listening. When you authentically connect, you can expect infants and toddlers to work with you to accept an undesirable outcome, try something hard, or make their next best choice. The most important first step is always to get their full attention. While researching this book in home-based care, center-based care, and early education classrooms, I noticed teachers saying the child's name repeatedly, adding volume, changing tone, and then becoming frustrated when the child did not come to them or listen to their very specific directions. By directing a child without securing their attention, adults unintentionally set off what I call the trigger trap reaction cycle. So here's what happened in the store this weekend. I was approaching the line for the counter to check out. And this little girl, she was probably about 3, if not just quite, or maybe just a little bit more than, somewhere in the 36 months range. And she unintentionally bumped into one of those tall towers near the counter where they put all the things they want you to buy at the last minute. And a little pair of sunglasses fell on the floor. No big deal, right? Like in an accident, they happen, not a problem. So what happened next was extraordinary. First, I want to walk you through what I typically see and hear. Then I'm going to share with you what I actually witnessed so that you can see both sides of how our subconscious speech, which we've been talking about in previous episodes, very often triggers us to trigger them. How our environmental experiences of our past cause emotions in us, that trigger them. So what I've seen in the past is the parent these were women. So let's say mom. We're just going to go with mom. But in general, any parent or any caregiver, right, feels embarrassed. That was unexpected, but they feel embarrassed because it doesn't meet with the world's expectation of how their child, quote, should behave. Now, the fact that this was pure accident doesn't stop our nervous systems from feeling attacked with that embarrassment and that blame and that ownership of what happened. When I've seen this in the past, what happens is that turns into words. What did you just do? Oh my gosh, you're so clumsy. You bump into everything. Pick it up. Pick it up now. Pick it up. Now this is multiple triggers. And the trigger trap reaction cycle, if you can visualize it with me, is that your energy and your words trigger their emotions and their feelings. So now they are feeling, they probably already were, but maybe they're feeling even more embarrassed and more overwhelmed. That turns into a behavior choice to do nothing. Pick it up. Pick it up now. But they're not picking it up. And as you escalate, it triggers them again. And as they dig in their heels and now they are crying, or now they are tantruming, or now they are yelling back, it triggers you again. And so it's this cycle that goes north, east, south, west, kind of around a compass, if you will, where we trigger them, they trigger us, we re-trigger them, they re-trigger us, and we're stuck. And in this situation, we're stuck doing it in public, where all those extra societal norms and perceived expectations enhance that emotional and that physiological reaction, right? Your heart starts beating faster, your skin actually gets warm, your face flushes, your muscles tighten, and that's happening for the little people too. So what I saw was extraordinary. Mom said to this little girl, I can't actually remember her name, and I'm actually glad I don't because I wouldn't want to say it on air anyway. Let's call her Lilith. Sure. Lilith. Oops. You bumped and the sunglasses fell down. Whew, so good. Attention getting. The very first thing she said was her name in a calm, invitational connection way. The second thing she did was use her words to normalize what just happened. Oops. You bumped. The sunglasses fell. These are powerful words of connection and collaboration. Because not only are they normalizing the literal events by narrating what she just saw, they're also sending that undertoned message of this is a no-fault situation. I know you didn't do this on purpose. Now, what happened next is really interesting. Because even though Mom was doing everything by the collaborative discipline book, this little girl still struggled. She felt deep shame. She felt deep embarrassment, and you could see it based on all the body indicators I just demonstrated a couple minutes ago. Mom had another woman with her, friend, nanny, aunt, I don't know who. Mom tapped out. It was so brilliantly done. She literally tapped this woman on the shoulder and said, "Your turn." And she walked away. I don't know if there is a history of when Lilith melts, does this other woman connect and create opportunity for her to be successful more? Maybe. I don't know if this mom was starting to feel her emotional regulation untangle and wanted to walk before she started the trigger trap reaction cycle. But either way, the self-awareness to choose a conscious decision on her part that would eventually create the opportunity for Lilith to be successful was amazing. Let's call her Nanny. Nanny comes in. So what I forgot to tell you is that Lilith's response was to sit her bum down firmly on the floor in line, looking directly at the tower that she had just bumped into and the glasses that were right in front of her on the floor. She didn't say a word. She just sat down. Nanny comes in and sits down right next to her. Are they in the way? Yes. But Nanny doesn't say anything about them. She simply, lovingly moves this little one's body, like slides her body so that she's a little bit closer to her. Now there's a walking path for me. And as I go by, as much as I wanted to just like hang out and do a social experiment of like just watching, of course that's not appropriate. So as I walk by, I go do my thing, but I have this incredible gift, sometimes it's a curse, that I can hear multiple conversations happening at the same time and process them all. So while I'm interacting with the lady who's checking me out, I'm also acutely listening to what's playing out behind me. Nanny says, "You feel sad about this. It's okay to feel sad. I will wait with you until you're ready to pick these up. Accidents happen. I'm here when you're ready." Just textbook. Beautiful work. Listen to the permission in those words. The permission to feel, the permission to wait, the permission to just be in her feeling moment. Now, is there a high likelihood that this kid is a feeler? You know, we call them high sensory beings. I'm going to explore all that in a different series on the show. Yes, it's incredibly likely. But the fact that the women who are caregiving her in her life are attuned to it is what matters most. So now we are getting to the point, like mom's checked out the bags, right? Not emotionally, physically. She has finished the checkout process. And I'm done with the checkout process. So someone else has come up behind me. And now we're getting to the point where it feels like we should be done. This is where the wheels typically fall off. When all of a sudden there's this perceived or real time constraint. And it's the most uncomfortable to sit in with small children because we feel that. We experience that. They don't. Time has literally stopped for them in that moment. They are only in that moment and that millisecond, then the next millisecond, then the next millisecond. So those are the most important, uncomfortable moments. And usually when the most movement happens, if we can persist through them. The next thing the nanny said was in response to what the little girl said. Lilith said, "I need help." It was so good. It was so good. Now, the nanny looked at her and said, "I would be so happy to help you." One thing that usually happens when we get to this point in the conversation and we have been this determined, we're 80% of the way there, right? Is that we start to, in accident situations like this, now we start to impose ownership and responsibility on this kid for, quote, what they have done. It's your job to pick it up. Well, it was an accident. "I would be so happy to help you," said this beautiful human. How should we work together to pick them up? She turned the action choice back over to the child. She turned the collaboration
idea back over to the child, who looked at her and said, I don't know how to hang them up. I know how to pick them up. Oh my gosh, this is what she was so worried about the whole time. She could have easily reached out and picked them back up in a heartbeat, but she was looking at that tower, realizing that there's a specific way that they have to go on, and she didn't know how. The end of the story is obvious, yes? The child picks them up. The nanny hangs them up. They celebrate the moment. Great, everyone leaves. What I want you to walk away with today is the huge aha that we would never have gotten to the child's actual concern, struggle, feeling, worry, or anxiety if they were not given the space and the time to be in their feelings, to have time to work through, and to be invited to share how they thought the problem may be solved. Connection is the gateway to hearing, understanding, and listening. When you authentically connect, you can expect infants and toddlers to work with you, to accept an undesirable outcome, try something hard, or make their next best choice. If you want to learn more about this concept, then be sure to go get a copy of the book and read chapter 10 specifically. And next time you're parenting in public, or next time you're having a struggle with a classroom of kids, keep in mind these first 2 steps become your opportunity to that future success.